Good Devach, everybody. So I'll tell you, Maisa, in the, I think it was the early 1920s, so the Frierdiker Rebbe of Lubavitch, the Rebbe Rayatz of Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, so he made a famous trip to Eretz Yisrael. He was there for a short time, but he was in Eretz Yisrael for a little bit. And so there's an interesting story that took place while he was there. So when he was staying in Yerushalayim for a certain amount of time, for about a week or so, he was in Yerushalayim, and there was a particular hotel that he stayed in, and from there, that was his lodging, and from there, every day he would travel different places and so on, but that's where he stayed in this particular hotel. Now it happens to be, there was a Yid that was living in Yerushalayim in that time, who knew the Rebbe, he knew the Frierdiker Rebbe. This was a Yid, let's call him Reb Yankel. This Yankel grew up in Lubavitch. He grew up in Lubavitch, went to the yeshivas of the Tamchei Tivim over there, the Lubavitcher yeshivas. But something happened along the way of this guy's life. He took a turn, and he was no longer connected, at least in an outer way, to Torah and mitzvahs. Very far from Yiddishkeit, very far from being a chassid, that's for sure, very far. But he was in Yerushalayim. Now, he heard that his old Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz, who he always had fond memories of. He didn't have anything personal issues with the Rebbe. Whatever the issues that he had were, it wasn't with the Rebbe. So he heard that his Rebbe is going to be in Yerushalayim, that he's staying there. But this Jew didn't want to go visit him. He didn't want to bring that up again. He was comfortable in his life, and that's it. He just wanted to close the chapter of his old life in Europe and to just continue on. But his mazel was in such a way that the streets that he had to travel on every day to go to work, he had no choice but to pass by that hotel. So every single day he passed by this hotel, and he was always concerned that as he passes by, first of all, maybe some of the Gaboyim and the Chassidim might recognize him. So that was something that he was nervous about. And second of all, even if they didn't recognize him, they see a Yid passing by, maybe they'll invite him to come in, and he doesn't even want to have to say no, he doesn't want to get involved at all, but he has no choice but to pass by that street. So what this Yankel does is that he dresses in the opposite of his finest, He wears short shorts, and Israeli sandals and a tank top t-shirt. He's trying to be as the opposite of a Chassidish Yid as possible, to the point of where all the Gabayim and the Chassidim over there wouldn't think twice that there's no way this guy wants to visit the Rebbe anyway. So that's what he would do. So the first day he passes by, unnoticed, it's Gavaldik, fine. The second day he passes by, also unnoticed, but something inside of him is a little bit turning, like maybe he does want to see the Rebbe, but he silences that voice inside of his head and just keeps on going on. And the days go on like this, where he's passing by the hotel, and no one's noticing him, no one's inviting him in, but he himself finds a part of him that's being pulled to go into the hotel to visit his old Rebbe. And he's sort of fighting himself from going in. Until finally it comes, he hears, from the grapevine that this is the last day that the Rebbe Rayatz is going to be in Yerushalayim. It's going to be the last day that he's in Eretz Yisrael. And so this Yid is passing by the hotel like every single day, again in his levush, but at this point, since he knows it's the last day, he can't hold himself back anymore. He can't hold himself back anymore. He says, what, I have to visit my old Rebbe. I don't know what it's going to be, but I have to just see his face. And so a little bit of the old chassid comes back with the, pushing and shoving and not taking no for an answer type, and he goes in, opens the door, and all the Gabayim, the Chassidim are there, see this guy, Israeli-looking guy, come in, and not even, no head covering, nothing. And he's just like pushing to go in to see the Rebbe. And the Gabayim try to hold him back, but he's a strong guy. He throws them around, and he's pushing until finally he gets to the room where the Rebbe is. And the Rebbe's by himself in the room. And this guy, despite all the Gabayim's best efforts to hold him back, he just opens the door and goes into the room. Now he goes into the room and he sees the Rebbe Rayatz in all of his glory. And the Rebbe looks at him, and the Rebbe has a big smile on his face, and he says, "Oh, Yankel." The Rebbe recognized him. And the Chassid looks at him, and he says, "Yes, Rebbe, I'm here." So the Rebbe Rayatz looked at him and began to cry, and he said the following sentence. He says, "Midreit, that sometimes we go in circles and circles and circles. We go like this, we go like that, we go like this, but eventually we come home." That's what he said. Eventually we come home. Now, a few years later, the Rebbe Rayatz passed away, And throughout Eretz Yisrael, whenever, by the Chassidim, they all made Hespedim and Asifas, to talk about the greatness of the Rebbe. So there's one particular gathering in Yerushalayim where a lot of Chassidim were coming together to have a hesped of some sorts about the Rebbe Rayatz. And out of nowhere, not on the list of speeches, this chassid with a long beard, a kapot and so on, a hat, and he's just pushing his way up and just throwing people to the side and just like an old-fashioned chassid and just like pushing his way up to the front. And he takes the mic and he just begins to talk. And he says over this story. He says over this story about the Israeli guy that found himself, passing by the hotel, and the last day he pushes his way in, and the Rebbe just says to him that sometimes we go around, but eventually we come home. And this chassid began to cry, and he said, I was that Israeli, I was that chassid. And the moment the Rebbe said that sentence to me, he says, whatever the rest of the conversation was about is completely irrelevant, but that sentence alone just changed my life around. And that's who I am now because of that sentence. No, that's the story of Yidden. That's the story of Klal Yisrael and Golus. We dray, we go like this, we go like that. Eventually we come home. It's just a matter of time. That's true for Klal Yisrael. It's true for each and every one of us. We know who we have to become. We know who we will become. It's just a matter of getting there. Stop going in circles and just actually going home to the place that we know we're supposed to go. So Hashem should bless each and every one of us with a lichtige vach, a mazlige vach, a gesunte vach, and a vach full of gulas and Yeshua, to be exalted, Tzadikim, Amen.